Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the SERMAPod, which is the podcast for the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Alliance. For those of you I have not met, my name is Virginia Pederson. I am super excited to be back as the guest host of the SERMAPod today. This is truly one of my favorite things to do. Just a little bit about me and I guess my qualifications to be here. I am in part a sports entertainment and fitness risk lawyer and a partner in the Houston office of Meyer LLP, and I am also a SERMA advisory board member. So today, I'm super excited to be here with y'all. We are going to be digging into a really, really interesting recent topic, and that is the settlement surrounding the Title IX lawsuit that was filed by a group of athletes, female athletes from San Diego State University. If memory serves, I believe it originated with a group of track and field and rowing women who initiated the lawsuit. But before we do that, I want to take a quick second to introduce y'all to our guest. Let me preface this by saying one of my favorite parts of hosting this podcast is the exceptional contacts I have made and these people that I get to meet here that are absolute experts in their field, and Nancy is not an exception to that. We are joined here today by Nancy Hogshead. She is well qualified to talk to us about this topic today. I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about herself, but I'll just start it off and tell y'all that she is a 3-time Olympic women's swimming champion. She's won 3 gold medals and 1 silver in the 1984 LA Olympics, Nancy?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, 1984.
So what were your events?
I won the sprint freestyles. So I always say that I won the same events that Rowdy Gaines won. And then people are like, oh, yeah. Because everybody knows. If you're in swimming at all, you know Rowdy. He's been the commentator and he's kind of the voice of swimming.
I love that. And was I right that it was 3 golds and 1 silver?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
That's insane. That's incredible. Well, and you've done a whole lot since that time. Nancy is also a well-known and respected civil rights lawyer, and she's the founder of Champion Women, which is a nonprofit providing legal advocacy for women and girls in sports, including, relevant today, Title IX compliance. Nancy, I have 1,000 questions for you that are probably going to have to wait until after the podcast. But in the meantime, I'm excited to have you here with us today. And why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about your trajectory as an Olympic female athlete? I mean, what was your swimming trajectory?
Being an athlete is a great way to get exposed to everything that what you do, right? That it is... to have that firsthand experience of like, what does Title IX mean? So as an example, the law was passed in 1972 and my senior year in high school was 1980. Right around 1978, all of a sudden, opportunities just opened up. They just flooded. And so I went from thinking, high school was going to be the end, and that would be the 1980 Olympics.
Sure.
Well, if you know your history, then you know that we didn't go to those Olympics. But because of this statute, Title IX, I got a full scholarship to Duke University. And I've always been grateful for the women who fought for Title IX, who got Title IX, because I wouldn't have gone to Duke on a full scholarship. I would not have won 3 gold medals in the 1984 Olympics later. And I just owe so much to the people that came before me.
That makes sense. I want to hear a little bit about Champion Women. If you could just kind of run through for us what your organization does, how it started, and how you found your way there.
Champion Women has been a 501c3 nonprofit for the past 12 years. So we provide legal advocacy for girls and women in sports. So what I was looking to do was like, how do I take what I know about Title IX and women's sports and employment law and equal opportunities and athletic scholarship dollars and treatment issues and be able to kind of give that away, and so that it's much easier to empower athletes, right? You've got to have somebody, the lawyer is working on, they're only going to get paid as soon after they get hired and, after they start working on the case, but somebody's got to kind of fluff up the case. Somebody's got to teach the athletes, here's what your legal rights are. And so that's what Champion Women does. So we're going to talk about San Diego State University, and Champion Women talked to these athletes when the case was first getting going back in I think 2020, right around during COVID is when it got started.
Well, and tell me this, you are, I guess, in the truest form to me, a civil rights lawyer. I feel like a lot of people who work in that space didn't necessarily start out doing that. What was your legal career? What was your trajectory to that?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Title IX got me into the law to begin with, right? I could tell I after the 1984 Olympics, I kind of played the Olympic game, right? So I endorsed a bunch of products. I had a 90-foot billboard in jockey underwear in Times Square. I wrote books. I endorsed a product for asthma. And but of all the things that I did, the thing that I liked the most was working with the Women's Sports Foundation. And I could tell that the people that were having the most fun and I felt like were the most effective at getting opportunities for women in sports were the lawyers that I was involved with. So I was like, I want to do that. But I honestly thought when I graduated from law school that the whole issue was of women's sports in high school and college would be over by the time I graduated from college. Because there was a big case, you're too young, Virginia, but there was a big case called Cohen versus Brown
Maybe
University.
not.
Yeah. So, and in that case, they had taken it up to the Supreme Court twice. That had good trial court, good appellate court decisions. So really, like, there wasn't much left to do. And usually that is how, as you know, that's how the law works, is that
Sure.
as soon as there's good case law on something and you've got good statutory law and you have good regulations, what else is there to do?
Right.
So I really thought Title IX in athletics, I felt like I really loved this. And that's kind of what got me into law. But I didn't think I would be able to keep doing it. I never thought, 30 years later or however many years that I'd still be trying to get equality for women in sports.
I it,
Never.
it's a little disconcerting, but we are certainly fortunate to have people like you, to fight for those rights. And I mean that kind of leads into our topic today. Let's talk a little bit about the San Diego State University lawsuit. Um, the way I understand it, and correct me if I am factually wrong on any of this, but it began back in 2022 when, like I said, a group of track and field and rowing female athletes sued the university, and they were alleging systematic underfunding of scholarships for female athletes. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. And so to break this down a little bit, it is my understanding that under Title IX, universities are legally required to provide athletic financial aid in proportion, and I'm quoting this, I'm reading
Yeah.
this, proportion to the raw participation rates of male and female athletes, right? So like, what does that mean?
Oh, what does that mean? It means that if your athletic department is 60-40, 60% men, 40% women, then the athletic scholarship dollars should be 60-40.
And that's clearly not what was happening here, right? So
Exactly.
the plaintiffs, that these female athletes provided this concrete, I guess, mathematical data showing that there was a proportionality gap. So, for example, in the 2020-2021 academic year, women made up roughly 57% of the varsity athletes at the school, but received only 50.6% of the total athletic scholarship aid. So the lawsuit claimed that over a 10-year period, this systematic gap obviously deprived female athletes of millions of dollars. I was looking into this and just reading some different articles, on different news articles and just different interpretations of it. And we're going to go through this a little bit, but generally speaking, it's obviously going to be difficult from a legal standpoint to quantify exactly how many millions of dollars we're talking about here, right? So It kind of seems.
Oh, no, no, no. It's easy to quantify.
Oh, is
It's
it? Well,
very, very easy to quantify. I'm
tell us about it.
convinced that schools deliberately don't teach athletes what their rights are. So there's a website called the EADA, the Equity and Athletics Disclosure Act, and
Okay.
they barf it all up. It tells you right there how many athletic opportunities they're offering, what the ratio is. What Champion Women did is we then took all that data and we applied the mathematical formulas so
Hmm.
that, here's the student body ratio is 50-50. I'm just making it up. Okay. But 50-50. And oh, look, the participation ratio is 60-40. So women should have, right? And so then we calculate the number that women should have, that they would have if they had equality. And then we do the same thing with scholarships. So there's two numbers that you look at.
Uh-huh.
One is, and so first of all, I want everybody to stick with me because I swear to you, this is the easiest part of the law that there is. Because sports are formally sex segregated,
Hmm.
it's easy to say, oh, men are getting this and women are getting this. If you're trying to do a case that's like, you're treating somebody as an employee wrongly, or, somebody was sexually harassed, those are much harder cases. The school has to report this data to the Department of Education. It's easily downloadable. What most families have a harder time with, what most athletes is they can't do the math, if you will.
Hmm.
So we have a website called Title IX Schools that lays it all out there that says, so it's TITLEIX schools.com. And we run through all the mathematical formulas so you can just put in your school, how many opportunities does the school need to add, how many scholarship dollars, and how many recruiting dollars.
That's very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very cool. I love the accountability of that. Well, I do just kind of want to go through a little bit more with you. So that's what we talked about, the premise of the lawsuit. The good news is a settlement has been reached, right? Very
Right,
recently. Was it in
right.
April? I think it settled
Yeah,
in
yeah,
April.
yeah. Not long ago. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I
not
can.
long ago. And that the terms of the settlement to me are very interesting because they seem very symbolic. But can you just kind of go through with us what those terms were, broadly?
Sure. So $300,000 in scholarship dollars that these women should have gotten. They should not have had to take on financial aid or, whatever. But in order to be giving the women what it is that the school is giving the men, they needed to be giving the women more. So, as you know, in order for the law to change somebody's behavior, to change an institution's behavior, you have to impose real consequences on them, right? It can't
Sure.
just be, So, um, for that reason, there were a large, I think it was 1.5 million in attorney's fees. There's all kinds of things in the settlement about hiring a Title IX person to come in and see how it is that they're treating male and female athletes. It's not rocket science, I keep
Right.
telling you. And um, so I think, there are all these other things besides just the 300,000 number. What I would have liked to have seen is a bit more for the
Hmm.
number, simply because if you one of the things that they've said about Title IX and athletics, but Title IX generally, is that um, a plaintiff you can only, when you get injunctive relief, you can only require the school to do what they were supposed to do anyway. So in other words, if they don't start a team for 10 years or 20 years, and all these girls, all these young women should have had swimming and softball and, all these opportunities, and they're not getting them, you can't sue for past damages. You can't, right? So
Right.
what's great about this is that it is a damages award that I hope to see replicated over and over again. So,
Well,
so typically in a Title IX case, all you can get is you have to start a team, or you've got to pay the coach more, or you have to have better facilities. You have to have facilities that are comparable to what the men have.
Sure. Yeah. And that actually kind of leads me into this question I have for you about we'll call it the payout precedent. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess historically Title IX lawsuits against universities result in structural remedies, right? Like kind of
Injunctive
like what you
relief.
were touching on, like adding a new women's team or, upgrading facilities. So in your opinion, why is the 300,000 class-wide monetary damage award in this case being hailed as historic or first of its kind?
Well, it is the first of its kind because you're not just saying, oh, you have to do this for the current students going forward, but you have to do it for past damages. And as soon as you get that award, then it opens up the floodgate. So we have graphs for every school in the country on that shows like here's what the scholarship dollars should be. Right now, schools are denying women, are you ready? $1.3 billion in athletic scholarships.
That is
That
wild.
if women were being given what men are given, they would have 1.3 billion more. So they're about a little over 2,000 schools that have data in the EADA. You figure half of them don't offer scholarships at all. So Division III or Ivy League or something like that, they don't offer any scholarships. So this is for most schools. I mean, this is a lot of money. In There are plenty of schools out there that owe women like in the $10 million range, and that's just for this. Right, what's going on right now? That does not include, the generations that have come before that didn't get their money.
Sure. And that's staggering,
It
honestly.
is staggering. It is
Just
1.3 billion
billion with a B.
with the right.
That's incredible. Well, let's talk about the proportionality gap. The plaintiffs, the female athletes in this case, highlighted a clear mathematical divide, and they noted that during the 20 like we said, the 2020-2021 academic year, women made up over 57% of the varsity athletes, but received only about 50% of the scholarship aid. So legally speaking, how wide does a funding gap have to get before it actually triggers a clear-cut violation?
Well, I think, I mean, I would. So most of the schools that we're talking about that might bring legal action, like, are you meeting the threshold amount? That's really not the issue.
Mhm.
Right? So Champion Women filed 100 complaints with the Department of Education, and we did the 50 worst in athletic scholarships, and we did the 50 worst in terms of athletic opportunities missed, right? So you have some schools that are denying, some Division One FBS programs that are denying women, in the 400 athlete range that need to literally double the size of their athletic department in order to be giving women the same thing they're giving men. So,
Mhm.
there's that proportionality. Usually, when you use that word proportionality, you're using it in terms of opportunities because it's called the three-part test. Again, this is really easy peasy stuff. But
Yeah,
one way that you can show that we're giving women enough opportunities is to say that our student body population and our athlete population are roughly the same, right? So
sure.
then you're taking that same when you take the same math and apply it to scholarships, of course, when you think of your math brain, which I don't really have one, is you think that the the athletic that if a school is denying women, as I said, 400 athletic opportunities, that therefore they wouldn't owe as much in athletic scholarships, right? So
Sure.
if you had double the number of teams, the number of athletic opportunities out there, that would double the amount of scholarships. So the person that did this case, his name's Arthur Bryant. He's a
Mhm.
really good lawyer. He's doing great stuff out there. And so Arthur, in this case, was using the proportionality gap for what the current numbers were, the current numbers in terms of participation opportunities, right? If the school actually started providing more opportunities, then you'd see even more scholarship dollars owed.
Sure, that makes sense. And I was gonna ask you about Arthur Bryant. Do you know him personally?
I do, yeah.
Well, and it looks like he did really an exceptional job on this pretty technical and pretty tricky lawsuit. And there is one thing we haven't talked about here yet, and that is the fact that I believe attorney's fees were awarded, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, 1.5 million, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
I had 1.3 in my notes, but it was a it
Okay.
was a
Okay. Yeah.
large sum. And
Right.
yeah,
Right.
and that and to cover the legal fees, and that's interesting because I guess completely eclipses the $300,000 payout to the athletes. But from a risk management perspective, what does this tell us about the cost of reactive defense versus, let's say, proactive compliance?
Right. I mean, earlier I was saying how that, Title IX only requires schools to do what they should have done anyway,
Hmm.
right? So, in other words, you can't go backwards. What's great about this is that it does look backwards. It does say, whatever the time frame was, that there's a ding. So, just so you'll know, if it's not already obvious, I want more students to feel empowered to get what they deserve. So these are life changing educational opportunities. It's almost a prerequisite to be an athlete in order to have a C suite position at a corporation. It's
Hmm.
94% of all those women had a sports experience. And so if you're denying women all these opportunities, um, then you're denying them a future that they should have. Right? Where
Yeah,
you got this space of learning how to win and lose. Okay, so I want more women, young women, to understand here's what your legal rights are, here's the remedy, here's the pathway to be able to get that. And when you bring a lawsuit, you're actually making it better for generations of women behind you.
sure. Right. And again, to your point earlier, it's shocking that it's this long in coming, but I'm glad we're here. Um, let's talk a little bit about the scope of the audit. The settlement mandated that the university hire an independent, mutually agreed upon expert to conduct a sweeping gender equity review. So when an outside auditor goes into a Division I athletic department, what are the hidden, skeletons in the closet that they're typically looking for? Why are they there?
Well, so Title IX, they're looking for equal opportunities, right? Can you say that you're either in proportionality with student body, student athlete,
Mm,
proportions are the same, number one, or two is you have this continuous history of improvement. Title IX is now 54 years old, so it's very unlikely that a school is going to be able to meet this continuous history prong of are you giving women equal opportunities? Or third is if you can show that you're meeting the interests and abilities of the student athletes. In other words, you don't have anybody knocking at the door, right?
sure.
So for prong three, only about 1 to 2% of all high school athletes have the opportunity to play in Division One. So to say that you're meeting the interests and abilities, I mean, literally, you can pick any sport. So schools picked rowing. And sure enough, bang, you had all these new rowing teams. It's not a high school sport. In other words, like they
Right.
can choose. So that was not the athletes knocking on the door and saying, hey, we want rowing.
Yeah.
So same thing, they can almost pick any sport that they want, but you know, they can, badminton or equestrian, or there's so many sports out there that you've got lots of interest and ability that's within the school's normal geographic region to compete in. Okay, so they're going to look for opportunities, number one. Number
Okay.
two is scholarship dollars. Okay, making sure that women are getting the scholarship dollars that men are getting. It's just, I can't even believe how easy math this is. And then third is looking at all the benefits and treatment. So, are women getting the same coaching, the same facilities, the same travel, the same? So, one of the things that we look at in terms of benefits is recruiting dollars.
Hmm.
So, schools are denying women literally hundreds of million their programs in recruiting dollars as opposed to men. It's one of the biggest gaps between men and women is recruiting. And we say that this has like all these trickle down effects. So in recruiting, um, um, schools, they have these things called recruiting days or whatever, where the athlete comes and they pay money to get seen by the college coach.
Uh-huh.
So it's a revenue source. Okay, guess what? Women's women's opportunities to do that cost a lot more than men's. Sometimes double, sometimes triple,
Hmm.
right? So if they don't have the recruiting dollars, then you kind of shift that cost because somebody's got to vet the athletes and see are they a good match for the school. It's only 1% of all the high school athletes have this opportunity. So um, so you're shifting it down to athletes that and their families for them to pay to get seen by the coach instead
Yeah.
of what they do for the men's team is the school pays for that coach to then go see the athletes and vet the athletes, everything they have to do.
Well, and
So,
that's kind of how it legally, compounds into what you might call like a systemic discrimination claim, right?
well, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say, like, whenever you see these really big gaps, like, you better be looking for a lot of sexual harassment. You better believe that those coaches are not getting paid. The women's coaches, uh, women or people who coach women
Yeah.
usually get paid less than people who coach men. And that's illegal. And I was the expert witness in two cases involving San Diego State University that had to do with employees. So
Hmm.
one had to do with this recruiting issue and facilities issue. And the other one had to do with it was the women's basketball coach. It was Beth Burns
Yeah.
and, San Diego State, a jury of her peers found that San Diego State was not giving her the same resources as a basketball coach than it was the men.
Yeah.
So to recap, just to be clear, this independent audit, equal opportunities, equal scholarship dollars, and equal treatment. One of the besides recruiting, I already touched on, another major area is what do the facilities look like?
Hmm.
So, in the 100 complaints that Champion Women has done, I torture research assistants by having them go and find me pictures of like, what does the baseball facility looks like? What do the softball facilities look like? And usually it's night and day.
Yeah.
So all these bleeding effects, right? That if you can't provide equality, it takes that intentionality when it comes to athletics. What are you giving the men? What do you get right? So every decision that you're making has a potential for Title IX issue. Every time you decide to get a better locker room for the guys, that's going to impact. Well, hold on, what are we doing for the women? Right?
Right. And it's things that you don't even really think about, just as I kind of did a deep dive into this. My understanding is that the terms of the settlement go all the way down to equality in things like nutrition, right? And professional photography.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on recruiting, which
Right.
falls into the also publicity category for me.
Sure.
Game broadcasting, that's a big one, right?
Podcast. Huge, huge, huge. I mean, all of those things that you mentioned, you're sending a signal to women about is what you're doing as important as what the men are doing.
Sure,
And
sure.
if you send a loud signal that what they're doing is just, we're doing because we have to, please, the girls pick up on it. And that's exactly what happened at San Diego State University is that the women knew that they were getting less than what the men were getting. The women rowers in particular, because
Yeah.
they didn't have a place to change their clothes to go from the classroom and change. I mean, it's crazy, crazy.
That is crazy. And I mean, on a side note, thinking about the broadcasting part of it, I was traveling this week for work and I was sitting in the airport in a restaurant yesterday and they had on not just one, but all of the TVs, the Women's College World Series. And I was surprised by that. You
Oh,
know, I
my
shouldn't be
goodness.
surprised by that. I was thrilled to see it. And I mean, it had a good following, but it seemed unusual to me, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah, the sex discrimination that goes on in between softball and baseball is just you can't justify it through anything other than plain old sexism.
Sure.
So because women bring in more money, they have more viewership, they have more, right? If you want to watch men play baseball, there are lots of ways to watch men. If you want to watch women play softball, that's it. That's the peak. That's the, right? I mean,
Yeah.
now they're back in the Olympics, but still, if you want to watch women's softball, and sure, I mean, they have the most loyal fans.
Hmm.
So it's a good place to look at, like, what are the facility, what do the locker rooms look like? What are the, and right. And sometimes, like, we have to, my research assistant, the schools actually do a good job of scrubbing the web for what the women's facilities look like. So you got tons of pictures. Like when you look at all the softball pictures, it's this.
Hmm.
It is all you can see is like their players, or they're throwing, or they're right. But what you don't see is those big magnificent shots that show the scoreboard and the stands and the all that stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so like I'm like we'll call up athlete. I need help. I need you to go take some pictures for me.
Right. And let's I kind of meant to ask you about this earlier, but I want to talk about the compliance deadline. I think they are legally required, SDSU, to bring their athletic departments into full Title IX compliance by what, the end of the 2026-27 school year? Is that right?
Is that right? I'm actually not sure.
Well,
That's
that's what I read, and I mean,
okay.
let's assume for the sake of argument that is the case. When you think about how entrenched, budgets and, I don't know, roster management systems are, is that period of time, that's a year and a half. Is that a realistic time frame to meet all these requirements that the settlement has set forth?
I mean, if they want to, they can.
Sure,
Just remember, like, not having enough money is not a reason to discriminate. Because if it
absolutely.
was, then they wouldn't have gone to all the trouble of passing Title IX in the first place. But again, this is a statute. This is not new news,
Right,
right? The
right.
statute's was 54 years old. And every single person that's working there grew up with and knows all about Title IX and, providing equality between men and women.
Mhm.
And so I don't feel sorry for SDSU at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And talking symbolically, I guess kind of the true victory, if you will, lies in the symbolic precedent that it sets, right? Because
Yeah.
when we're looking at the individual payouts, it's
It's
roughly,
not that much.
I mean, from what I read, $172 to $860 per athlete,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we're looking more symbolically at what kind of precedent this is going to set. And I mean,
Yeah.
y-
This is only the first case,
right,
right? You need to establish that this is a possibility, right? But I want to see, UNC Chapel Hill and have them sue for, you know, 10 million.
right. Well, and right. And what about the fact that SDSU didn't legally admit to any wrongdoing or discrimination, right? I mean, and I don't,
Yeah.
it,
They're not going to pay unless, if you've got the numbers and the whatnot. I don't know why. I don't know what it gets them by not apologizing and not fessing up.
right.
I don't know. Look, duh. This is so speak. So my daughters are now 20, but when they played softball when they were like, starting when they were like 7, 8,
Mm.
third practice, they come to me and they say, "Hey, mom, how come the boys have a scoreboard and we don't have a scoreboard? How come they have permanent bleachers and ours are like the mobile ones? Why do they have a bathroom and we don't? Why do they have a concession area and we don't?" Right? Like,
Yeah.
so here they were, little kids. I have not promised, given them the talk on, here's what, equality in sports is. They knew already. They already knew. So, so I don't know why they wouldn't um apologize and make
Apologize.
amends. And
Right.
exactly right. We knew that we were discriminating against women. We were giving you less, and you didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
And we're going to do better.
Well, and
Because, like, if you're depending on like this outside person, to come and do an audit,
yeah,
give me a
right.
break.
It's it I don't I'm not going to go so far as to say that I guess it cheapens the justice of it, but maybe it does. I mean it would be such a
Do you
simple
mean the
and
amount of the
necessary thing.
settlement?
Say that again.
Do you mean the amount of the settlement that it cheapens it,
No, that
or
the
the
lack of an
fact they're not
apology.
apologize? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that they're not acknowledging,
right.
right?
The just complete lack of acknowledgement, you know. You, you said earlier that this was just the first of the lawsuits. Just knowing what you know and how immersed you are into this world, do you anticipate a lot of copycat lawsuits down the line?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so. Because as y'all know, what a plaintiff's lawyer needs is if they're going to take all the risk and they're not going to get paid. I think Arthur Bryant got hired in 2022 and here it is 20. So he hasn't gotten paid for 4 years, he and
Hmm.
his staff. So in order to take on that risk of potentially not getting paid and whatnot, you need to have, it has to be more than just Lodestar,
Sure.
right? And
Sure.
so that's what this provides for future cases is that there will be that pot. So it will encourage more plaintiffs' lawyers to be able to take these cases.
Yeah. Agree. So
But
we are.
Virginia, can I just say that, plaintiffs have won every single Title IX case in athletics that has come out. And it's because of, as you know, you learned in law school 101, right? That there are only two things that a court is there to decide. Number one is what are the facts? And in athletics cases, that's pretty clear
Yeah.
by the data that the school itself provides. And two is what's the law? Well, we have between statute regulations and case law, phenomenal law, but basically equal means equal. You can fight this all you want to, but equal means equal.
Right.
And and um um you would think that there would be a lot more compliance than there is. I would think.
You would think.
Yeah,
I know it's gonna be very interesting to see how this plays out in terms of, I mean, I used the word copycat lawsuits,
yeah,
over the next 12 years with these big universities.
yeah,
I also kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, I guess, this lawsuit and its collision with the House settlement. We're living in a time where college sports, direct revenue sharing and direct university payments for athletes are a reality, obviously. That's a whole other issue. So, how do these new corporate and university payment models complicate Title IX calculations? And I
yeah,
mean, also roster proportionality moving forward.
yeah, yeah. So there's as you know, there's a lawsuit that is challenging the House settlement.
Yes.
It came to being uh, sort of with this idea that Title IX doesn't exist,
Hmm.
right? Like they came up with this agreement, and then they finagled all the financial things so that allegedly the money's not coming from the school and all these things. So they can say it's not us that's discriminating, it's the third party, it's the whatever. But um, the the house settlement came to be literally not taking Title IX, the fact of Title IX, into play.
Hmm.
Now remember, schools are not private businesses. These are entities that all of us put our collective tax dollars into and resources and everything else because we think it makes a better kid, it makes a better society,
Sure.
right? So if it's not doing that in its endeavors, if it's not giving women equality, then the school really, I think the whole system needs to be adjusted. So the lawsuit that is challenging the House settlement, one of the main plaintiffs is a former research assistant of Champion Women.
Is that
So her name,
right?
yeah, Lexi Drum. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look further into that.
Oh, she's fantastic. Every single thing that I asked her to do while she was here, she did more of,
Oh yeah.
right? She took it further than what I asked her to do. She's the one who showed me like, hey, women are having to pay so much more for these ID camps
Hmm.
that are part of recruiting. And so then we added those to our complaints. The women are paying this and the men are paying this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. No, she's great. She's great. So hopefully the House settlement will be challenged and they will come up with a solution. I mean, right now people are kind of looking at Congress instead
yeah.
of the courts to, come up with a remedy. So Title IX is wildly popular. Equal opportunities in athletics. And why? Because so many legislators have daughters.
Right. How about
They
that?
know. Yeah, exactly. They
Nothing like it personally
know.
affecting you, right? So,
Yeah, right.
I
But I
mean,
mean, Democrat, Republican, Independent, young, old, from the Northeast, Southwest, all the support for Title IX is really like in the 80, 90 percentile,
which is great.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's great. This has been, we're kind of running out of time here, but this has been such an interesting conversation. Possibly my favorite SERMAPod that I've done, honestly. It's just,
Really?
yes, this is,
Oh,
it's
Virginia,
fascinating. And I
thank
mean, and
you.
it's feel good stuff, right? I
Yeah.
love to see people fighting for this. And I mean, y'all are doing a lot of good
Yeah.
things.
So
So,
Virginia, you honest to goodness, I wish I could like share my screen and show you our website, Title9Schools.com,
yeah.
Titleix, Title9Schools.com. And you can, put in your school
Oh,
and
yeah.
each university and see, how many opportunities they need to have, how many scholarship dollars and recruiting dollars.
I went to LSU. I'm gonna be on that website in 5 minutes. So,
Oh, so LSU is one of the schools that we filed. That if I had known that, I would have had the numbers handy. But it's one of the schools that we filed complaints. So when you go onto Title IX schools, go in the upper left-hand corner, and there's all of the complaints. But LSU is one of them, and we've got the pictures and the graphs and the everything. It's all there. Like
I
a
will be
plaintiff
listening.
lawyer, like we're like, ta-da! We've done all the work for you. You know?
Here are the
Yeah,
facts.
exactly.
Okay, well, okay, listen, Nancy, this was so fantastic. I want to talk to you some more after this is done,
Yeah,
but again, we really appreciate you spending some time on your Friday with us, and this has been super
it's a
informative.
real
And
pleasure.
yeah, I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks.